with the name of the poses. So we've got Pavrita Trikonasana, Pavrita Parshvakonasana, and Pavrita Ardha Chandrasana, right? And a lot of times people think that they are similar poses to Utthita Trikonasana, Utthita Parshvakonasana, and and Ardha Chandrasana, right? And so this is the thing that I always use. So we have Jean-Marie. That's me. And we have Susan. Susan's my sister. Okay? So we share blood line. So we shared at one point, we shared a name, Paola, but she got married. But let's pretend she's not married, or she's divorced or something, right? So what are some of the things we have about Jean-Marie and Susan? They share a name, but Jean-Marie is a yoga teacher. Susan is a lawyer. Jean-Marie, single. Susan, married, 2 kids. Susan, big apartment on 79th Street. Views of Central Park. Jean-Marie, rent, stabilized, in Midtown. Okay? So you see, we share a name, but everything else about us is different. Okay? And that's the same thing between the Pavritas and the Uttitas. Utthita Trikonasana is an externally rotated standing pose. Pavrita Trikonasana is a neutral twist. Everything is different about them. The same thing with Pavrita Parshvakonasana and Utthita Parshvakonasana, Ardha Chandrasana, Pavrita Ardha Chandrasana. So that misconception, a lot of times when students start to do sequencing and stuff, they think, oh, I can just go from this to this, and they're completely different. It's just like Vera 1 and Vera 2. So just to kind of give you something to think about with that. All right, so let's look. Page 189 of the Asana Manual, we will look over this, and then we'll start to break down the poses. I call the twists, whether seated or standing, an all-around good time. Because twists release out the back after back bending, but they also prepare the shoulder girdle for back bending. So you can bookend back bends with them, the deeper back bends especially. So let's go through, we'll start over here. You can each read like 3 of the bullet points, the alignment principles, and then moving into the benefits.
Maintain stability in the pelvis and legs. Keep the hips square, pelvis level, except in cases of disc problems and lower back pain. Establish the plumb line or central axis in the torso. Lengthen up through this axis, then revolve and twist around it.
Encourage these to come from the center of the body by using muscular engagement, internal level, before applying external level.
So we did that in the beginning of the practice. You know, when we just did this and we twisted, it was to see that there was motion that we could create from the obliques, but that was just using what we call internal levers. And then when we added the arms after, we were able to effect a much deeper twist. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
Earlier in another class when we were talking about what you do in the warm-up, we were saying that you generally don't do twists that much in the warm-up, but this is a lighter twist.
It's a lighter twist, yeah. And we used it to teach in a much simpler way the work of what you want with the twists. Yeah, good question. Okay, carrying on.
Focus the rotation of the right spine and in the shoulder girdle. The left spine has only 5 degrees of rotation. Distinguish between twisting and swiveling, which is movement in the hips rather than actual rotation.
Lengthen every through the front and the back body. Maintain front line even when body isn't vertical. Pravita Trikonasana. By lengthening from the pelvic floor to ground of the head. Keep the neck long. Bend the shoulder blades into the back while keeping chest and upper back broad.
Benefits. Twists help digestion and elimination. Twist to the right first toward the ascending form. It provides a squeeze and soak action to the abdominal organs. When the twist is released, fresh blood rushes in and soaks the area.
Twist provides squeeze and soak of intravertebral discs, helping to keep them numb and healthy, which mitigates contraction in the spine that is associated with breathing. Twist assists the lymphatic system. They warm and strengthen muscles of the posterior and anterior.
Okay, so the idea of the squeeze and soak in the compression of the spine. When we are walking during the course of the day, especially walking on city streets, we're compressing the intervertebral disc, so we're actually getting shorter during the course of the day. When the only time that we get fresh fluid, lymphatic fluid I believe it is, into the intervertebral discs is when we get a full 8 hours of sleep or when we do a twist. So when we do a twist, we squeeze, we like wring out all of the deoxygenated fluid in the spine, and then when we release the twist, the same thing with blood in the organs. We rinse out, we squeeze out the deoxygenated blood, and when we release the twist, fresh oxygenated blood can kind of gorge in. That's why it's so important that we have the maintenance of the plumb line. We have a nice long spine before we come into a twist, because if we're not, and we're doing a deep twist and we're rounded, and then we're twisting on top of it, you could make the argument that there's compression to one part of the spine that will force the intervertebral disc to kind of pop out in the other direction. That's what we're trying to, and as far as the organs are concerned, it sounds silly, but if we're rounded and we're twisting to one side, then we're getting part of our spleen wrung out, but not our liver, and we don't have an even squeezing and rinsing of the organs or of the spine. Okay? Carry on.
They strengthen muscles that are important for good posture. Twists can be therapeutic for the back. Twists neutralize the back after back bends.
They facilitate letting go of the old and bringing in the new. They help to counteract physical and psycho-emotional quality of stagnation.
Common misalignments and risks. Right-through the head and or shoulders around rather than rotating the torso. Cut straight to the neck and keeps students from full benefits and twists. One side of the waist collapses and shortens while the other side puffs. The back rounds and the chest sinks. This can cause compression in the spinal column.
Pelvis not square or level. Plumb line not maintained. This is commonly seen in Parvrita Trikonasana. The upper torso and head will move out of the sagittal plane and into the coronal plane, and the crown of the head will no longer be in line with the pelvic floor. If looking at the pose from the back, the shoulders and head will be either left or right of the pelvis, and or the heart and head will be dropped lower than the pelvis at navel.
Contraindication. Back problems / injuries, bulging herniated discs, osteoporosis, facet joint syndrome,
spondylolisthesis and spondylolisthesis.
Pregnancy, open twists are okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sorry. So the spondylolisthesis and spondylolisthesis are very generally, the spinous processes, which are the bones that come towards the back of the spine that allow for flexion and extension and rotation. They either one vertebra is jutting one way and the other is going the other way, or it can be a fracture or a breaking of those bones. And facet joint syndrome is the same thing with the facet joint. So it's bony injury to the spine, to make it easier. And in those cases, you wouldn't want to. Twists, in pregnancy, we have people do just open twists. so that they're getting an opening in their chest, but they're obviously not twisting the torso. Okay? And then miscellaneous, I'll just read this. Invertebral discs rely on the tissues around them to provide nutrients and fluids that help keep the discs plump and healthy. The squeeze and soak action of twisting assists in the movement and absorption of these fluids. Okay, so just what I was saying. Yeah. All right, so any questions about that?
I have a silly question.
Yes.
What is the lymphatic system?
The lymphatic system is it's basically plasma moisture that brings nutrients to the blood, it carries white blood cells, and it also brings nutrients to the blood and nutrients throughout the body. It's part of the circulatory system.
Thank you.
Yeah. That was a very broad generalization, just know that. Okay, any other questions? So now, you're going to get back